Hi, YouTube. I hope you're all doing well. Um, I watched a couple of interviews that Dr. Jordan Peterson had. One of them was with a girl named Chloe Cole, and I left her interview and the other one on my community page. I'll get back to the significance of that in a moment. And also was another one with an author and a writer, a well-known writer, for like the New York Times and different. She wrote I believe, she wrote a book um, called Irreversible Damage about the different things that are happening to the children in our society, maybe due to the failure of people in positions of power and different groups and organizations that want to destroy a generation of children from becoming childbearing people and other reasons, but they go into it deep, her and Dr. Peterson, and it's really informative. Well, the topic of my video today, mainly the point I want to get across, is if you will watch that interview with Chloe Cole, this girl that when she was 9, and listen to her story, what led her to believe that she wanted to be a boy. Um, it's just heartbreaking. And then when she found out that that actually wasn't the case, now she doesn't have anybody to help her. Well, the medical field, the people in the psychologists and psychiatrists and that in certain states and countries now, it's illegal for them to say if this person came into their clinic and said, I feel like I'm a boy, although I am biologically a female, they have to basically agree with these people instead of giving them the um, biological information of what it's like to go through puberty without blockers and adolescence without testosterone and these types of things that was available to this girl right down to, I mean, she started when she was 12 and 13 on testosterone and first puberty blockers. And then when she was 15, she had her breasts removed. Now, this girl has smaller shoulders than I do. This is even after taking testosterone. And I think back when I was 9 and I had been through some of the same things that she described as far as being a tomboy. And I don't know how I would have handled it if I had been in a society that had said, okay, just take this for instance, that I was assaulted when I was 9 years old, led me to want to be as strong as a man so they could never hurt me again in different ways. There's a lot of maybe psychological reasons why these girls are choosing to do these type of things, and the confusion of what it's like to be a teenager to begin with. I mean, I feel like these children are being failed by the medical community in a big way. Because when I was 9, if they had started giving me puberty blockers and stuff, I probably would have went for it, you know. So I feel like this is child abuse and it's a crime. I think there's a lot of people that actually feel that way. But I also think that there's a lot of shame that parents carry that they're not going to speak up about or tell their children about. And also, they're being told things like, if you don't let this child be who they're going to be, then they're going to probably end up committing suicide and that type of thing, that type of fear that's being instilled in these parents instead of helping the whole world psychologically, including the parents, to help the parents describe what it was like for them going through puberty and adolescence and um, the dating scene and whatever, you know, which it was back even for me, um, difficult because to even find a guy that was taller than me, for instance, I mean, I'm 5'9 1/4, and it's not extremely tall, but when I was 9 and 13, I was taller than everybody most of the time, you know, and they use this type of psychological stuff against people. I I would be so mixed up and destroyed if I had had people in my life encouraging more of a masculine aspect to myself than who I am, who I was born to be. Um, the lines are so blurred for these children nowadays because they were blurred for the parents too. And nobody's talking about the personal things that they actually did go through. Or if they are, it's more in a, oh, well, I felt like that too, so a little bit, so I can understand how you feel and lay your sympathies like that on a child that doesn't have a full scope of biology and what's going to happen to her body or his body if they make these changes when they're a little person. That's my concern. So I'm asking you if you will listen to at least the first half hour of the video that I'm going to share with Dr. Peterson and Chloe, and listen to how Jordan Peterson explains puberty and adolescence, and take an example from that we can help the next generation see their way through all this chaos that's being pushed down their throats right now. From what I understand from that author, Abigail Shear, um, there's a 4,000% increase in girls wanting to change their gender, aside from like the 2% of boys wanting to. So there's by far many more girls wanting to become boys than ever before. That's disturbing. Very. Um, I mean, actual motherhood is in jeopardy as it is, but around the world, the populations are waning and in jeopardy of that. And the experts know this is true. And if you would have asked me when I was a little kid if I had wanted to have a kid, my answer was definitively no way. Right up until my 20s, there was no way I was not going to have kids and put kids in this world. Not at all. So a person does change through their lives with their hormones and the things that they go through on this planet, you know. So it's pretty in depth and pretty important that we understand the psychology of what's going on and why it is going on. You know, if I get cut off, I love you all. I might leave it there, and I don't think I will. I'll try and make it so I don't. But I thought this was really important for people to see. I mean, we've all seen transgender people out there, and a lot of times it's sort of like a jokey thing, or it's very disturbing depending on how you look at it. But, like for instance, this one man dressed in a dress with Drew Barrymore, you've probably seen it, where she gets on her knees before him on the ground, and he's some kind of a man dressed like a woman telling you how to be a woman, although he's only been one for about a year of his life. And I think he looks to be like in his 20s or so. Yeah, he's making money off that one, that's for sure. And still looks like a man. I mean, he could be pretty, like a pretty ugly girl, you know. And even when they practice their mannerisms, like if I go like this and the way I am, using my hands and this, and they'll try and do like copy and mimic what a woman does naturally, you know. And this isn't by accident, you know. So it's pretty sad. We have had a heck of a time here, not last night, but the night before. We had our power go out through the night, and I was just happy that I had brought in enough wood to keep us warm. Otherwise, our heater wouldn't have worked. Well, it didn't work, but we had the wood stove. So I was glad that I did that. But I took a day to recover yesterday, although I got some things done around here. But it was really hard. I really, really messed myself up with that last fall. I took it. I almost saw stars too. It was a pretty hellacious. And the thing is, the places I injured were on top of injuries I already have that made it worse. It was crazy. I even have like where the wood poked me. Oh, I don't know if you can see it right there. In there, I got a couple bruises and bruised the front of my leg and messed up my shoulder and smacked my head has a bump. It's like I cratered myself just from sliding on the porch, and that had a lot to do with being overly tired while I was doing things, you know. So yesterday it wasn't as strenuous as what I typically would do, you know. And I did get some wood in today, but I'm not going to be doing a whole lot more. Um, Tomorrow I expect to have a pretty big day though, because I'm not doing as much today. So, but yeah. But I thought you might appreciate me getting on here and just saying hello. But it's so much more than that, because we have a whole generation of youngsters that are having their puberty and adolescent times weaponized against them. And that's the truth. It's this girl made me cry. Her voice is still kind of like a boy's because of all the testosterone she took. But when she starts talking about the surgery she had, and even when she went in there and she saw other children in there much younger than her, like 8 and 9 years old, in the surgery room, kind of freaked her out right then too. But it didn't really hit her of how horrible it actually was, but the shame that she's carrying with just insisting that she was somebody that she actually wasn't because she didn't know any better. It's just horrible. And she cried kind of like I would. She a little bit, and then she straightened her act up like almost like instantaneously, but the womanhood of her that came out through her tears was flippin' heartbreaking. This morning I was telling Doug about it, and he's like, "Well, you don't have to cry. You watch that. You tell me if this girl won't make you cry. If you can get through that interview and not be emotionally distressed." See, now I have a relative that's thinking about sterilizing a child that's handicapped. And sometimes when you've had like head injuries and stuff, those do heal. And just taking that ability away from that child um, is a huge, huge step and a huge process. And actually could be life threatening because anytime you have a major surgery, you're endangering your life. Well, that's what's happening to these children on this planet more and more. You know, it's pretty terrible. Like I said, just watch it. If you can watch through the whole thing with an open mind and heart and listen to this child who is still only maybe she was 18 when she did the interview, and that was a couple months ago, so she could be 19 at the most. It tore me up. I had heard about her story before, but I hadn't heard her talk about it, you know. And she's not the only one. That's the thing. It isn't the matter, it isn't the issue whether these children are what they call, or people, trans fluid or pangender. That just means that they basically be with anybody, right or wrong. So if they end up being homosexual, at least they're not mutilating themselves. But these parents are hearing that they're in jeopardy of losing their child because other children have taken their lives for that reason. Well, I've been through some similar things and stood my ground. And my children are adults now. And I'm glad I stood my ground for them because I know someday that God's going to pull them out whole one way or another. And they're going to understand that I did understand the psychology behind it all and the agendas that are going on. It is communistic. Communism never ended. It moved over here with the scientists, the biologists, the psychologists, and is weaponizing this whole society against each other. And it's true. Nothing's too normal in our world today. Nothing's too peaceful that we could say, I actually would want to bring a child onto this planet. I don't know if I had it all to do over again, that I would. I really don't believe I would. If I was in that position right now, in love with somebody and wanting to make a family, I don't think that I would even go that far. I highly doubt it. Not knowing what I know now and not knowing the suffering that the people are going through because of people not standing up for their best interest. And when you let a child make decisions for themselves, you're not standing up for a child's best interest. Their best interest is a functioning adult and becoming a functioning adult in this society and leading them on that path the best way you know how for yourself. Now, if they decide to do something else once they're an adult, that's up to them. That's their decision. But for a parent not to do the parenting and not to care about the psychology and the community around them and how they view things, like this Chloe, for instance, grew up in California where they're so far left, they're horribly liberal. Well, what with peer pressure and everything else? Here's one for you. I heard there's a Catholic girls' school in England where the majority of the class are saying that they're the wrong gender. How about that? Well, then you know something's wrong with society, right? Why all of a sudden are all these girls doing this? Then why aren't women my age and younger? I was a tomboy. So, what have I learned in between then and now that would change my mind? You know, that a younger person might not and don't. They don't know because they're young. They don't have the life experience. And they don't know enough about biology or even surgeries that they would go through. And even if they read what the ramifications for that surgery would be, they still don't have the understanding of it. How could you? You can't. You can't know things until you live through them. That's why children have parents to protect them from things that could cause them harm, you know? So, yeah, it's a big concern of mine. As you can tell, it has been for a long time here. And because I know it's one of the biggest weapons that is not only used to divide people against each other, but to actually destroy that individual human being, you know. And like I said, there's nothing cute or funny about it at all, you know. And there's other ways that adults destroy children too, using like over sexualizing them and being around crude things when you are little that you shouldn't have never seen or heard, or different things in our lives where our parents failed us because of their own shame. So it was easier for them to pass on their illnesses to you or I than it was to actually be truthful and face up to what they had done and told you why and tell you why it probably isn't a good idea that you do that because it could cause you harm in this way or that way, or you know. And that's what parents really need to do, you know. And I know